So, one of the most common questions I get from clients is, what is the grossest thing that's ever happened to you while you were waxing somebody? So, here's a quick little story time for you guys. One day I was at work. I used to work for a corporate company, and I had a client come in, and she doesn't tell me that she's on her period, which is not a big deal. I wax people on their periods all the time. Just throw in a fresh tampon, plug it up, hop on the table. Not a big deal. But she doesn't tell me that she's on her period because she had the string tucked. So I'm waxing, we're laughing, we're talking, and then out of nowhere she sneezes, and then her tampon popped out. So she's embarrassed, and she can see it on my face that I'm, just a little frustrated about what just happened. So I explained to her that in the future, she needs to wear a new, fresh tampon so that things like this don't happen. When you've been sitting on one for a little while, they remove very easily if they're ready to come out. So I hand her a paper towel, and I ask her to just go ahead and clean it up. And she's moving like she doesn't even want to. Like that's my job or something. So eventually she does. And I hand her a fresh tampon, and I say, hey, you can go to the restroom, clean yourself up. When you come back, I'll be more than happy to finish your service. So while she's in there, I'm disinfecting the bed with barbicide wipes. And when I'm done, I'm standing in the door waiting for her patiently. And she comes out, and she just walks right past me and just leaves out of the center.
Story time about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So a little background information. My boyfriend used to be best friends with this one girl. We're gonna call her Jamie. Well, Jamie and my boyfriend were best friends for years, and their friendship was more flirty than anything. Well, him and I got to know each other during track season. So we were always hanging out after school, and sometimes Jamie would be there too. Well, the one night him and I were on FaceTime, and we were talking about how we really liked each other. So the next day we started dating, and I was good friends with Jamie too. Then after we started dating, she started acting really weird towards me. Like I would try to say hi whenever I saw her in the hallways, and she would just give me a dirty ass look. So then I told my boyfriend how I thought that she was really mad at me, and he said that he would talk to her. Well, a week before him and I started dating, she told us that there was this guy that she really wanted to ask to prom, and she said that she liked him for a while. Well, then my boyfriend said, apparently a few days ago you were hitting on the boy that she was going to ask to prom. So then I started to connect the dots, and I was like, oh shit, like for part two. Part two about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So like I said, I started to connect the dots after that. And then I realized that she was talking about my boyfriend. We're just going to call him Josh. As he's telling me this, I immediately get a FaceTime call from her. So I answer the phone, and she says, well, I think I should just confront the situation now. So the first thing that she says is, you knew I liked Josh. Like, how could you do this to me? I had a poster board and everything. So I'm just like, well, why didn't you tell me that you liked him? And she goes, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you knew. But I was sitting there thinking about the fact that they were best friends for 5 years and nothing ever happened, so it's really not my fault. And then this girl has the nerve to say, I'm pretty sure if you just break up with him now, me and you can get past this and still be friends. So I said no. So then I called my boyfriend, told him that we talked it out, and I didn't even tell him about what she said or anything like that, because I just wanted the situation to be over and done with. So a few weeks after that, she decided to get her brother involved. Her brother and Josh were best friends, by the way. Part two about my boyfriend's best friend trying to ruin our relationship. So like I said, then she got her brother involved. And her brother and Josh were best friends. A little background information here. Josh had stopped talking to Jamie for those few weeks after she called me that night because she was making things really awkward in our relationship and just giving us a lot of problems. So the one night, Jamie's brother texts Josh, and he's like, bro, I think it's mad sus how you cut her off when your girlfriend's the problem. So obviously Josh texted him and said, what do you mean? And her brother was like, she hits me up all the time to hang out. We've been hooking up. I can even send you the nudes that she sent me. And before I started dating Josh, there was this boy that I was talking to for like 6 months, and I ended up sending him nudes. And yes, they got around the school. But surprisingly, Josh had no idea about them. So her brother sent Josh the nudes and said, bro, here, like, see her face is in it and everything. Lesson learned, don't put your face in nudes. So then me and 3 other people explained to my boyfriend that those were from a while ago. And after that, he just blocked both of them and we're still together.
So when I first started waxing, I met this girl and she came in for her very first wax. I laid the strips down and I pulled them. Well, she fainted. I immediately went into a panic. She fainted for like less than a minute, but I was already dialing 911. She woke up and she's like, no, hang up, hang up. This is what happens when I'm in pain. And I'm like, girl, you should have told me this before I started the session. She's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, girl. So I'm like, okay, you have to bring someone with you every time you come then, because I cannot be responsible for you fainting. So now she always comes with someone. So I want your opinion on this story. This is about a fellow business owner and a first-time client. Now, this business owner has a policy in place. Part of her policy is a $50 non-refundable deposit that is only transferable if you cancel your appointment 48 hours prior to your appointment. Also, if you're more than 15 minutes late, your deposit will be forfeited and you will have to reschedule and also leave a new deposit. Her policy is all over her social media platforms. Now, she had the client on a Monday, but unfortunately she couldn't service the client because she thought she had COVID. So she ended up getting a COVID test and it came out negative, thankfully. The client agreed to reschedule for another day. The day came, but the client was running really late. The 15-minute late grace period had already passed, but since the service provider had already rescheduled her once, she honored her deposit and transferred over to another day once again. Now the day came, the appointment was for 5 o'clock. The client did a no call, no show. By 6 o'clock, she messaged the service provider telling her that she's sorry that she didn't come, but she had car problems. What's another good day? The service provider said, I'm sorry, but at this point you do forfeit your deposit. Now the client is extremely angry. She's like, how do I forfeit my deposit if you didn't even complete a service? You're not about to steal my money. The service provider goes, well, hon, you paid for a time slot and I already let it slide 2 times. And at this point, I have to honor my policy. Now this girl starts harassing her on all social media platforms, calling her a thief. And the service provider at this point didn't know what to do because this policy is all over her social media platforms and it needs to be respected no matter what. This, my friends, is why it's important to read people's policies. The beginning of my waxing career is mostly horror stories and learning experiences for sure. I used to offer facial wax services. I no longer do it. My salon does, but I personally don't. So I am about to wax someone's face. I pick up some wax. Big rookie move, I didn't test the temperature of the wax, so it was definitely still too runny. I go to apply it down on her face, but the big blob of wax falls right down on her hair and her shirt. She panics immediately and jumps right up, making the wax spread down on her hair, deeper in the strands. And I'm like, no, lay back down. Oh my God, like we're both just kind of like yelling at each other. She lays back down. I try to remove the wax, but at this point, it was not a good situation at all. I look at her in her eyes and I'm like, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut this off. And she's like, what? Yenny, my wedding is in 4 weeks. I'm like, look, here's a solution. I'm going to cut it off. And then we were upset. The situation was very awkward. I offered to cut her hair for free and a free color service. Thankfully, she said yes. So I did a bob haircut and I also gave her beautiful highlights. When she looked at her hair, she nearly cried. She was so happy about it. She said, thank you so much, Annie, for fixing my hair. I really love this. And of course, everything was for free because it was my fault. Today I met a throuple. They found me on TikTok and decided to come see me. The fella got a Brazilian and his 2 girlfriends got Brazilians. I don't know why I was so intrigued by their story, but thankfully they gave me permission to tell all of you my experience with them and to share their story. So Tommy and Vanessa were together first for 2 years, and Vanessa stepped out of the relationship first. He caught her texting another fella and they broke up for like 2 weeks. During that time, he decided to seek out other women and found his other girl on Snapchat. He messaged her, they met up, and they ended up hanging out. Vanessa found out and was livid. She didn't want him to move on, so They end up getting back together, but now at this point, he didn't want to be faithful to her anymore because he felt that he didn't owe her any loyalty since she didn't know how to be loyal to him. So now he's juggling two women. Melissa, the other girl, didn't know anything about Vanessa. And Vanessa didn't know that he was still seeing the other girl. So now time passes by and Melissa ends up getting pregnant. This is when she finds out about Vanessa, and they both meet up to talk about the situation at hand. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I ran out of time. Part 2 coming. Melissa and Vanessa tell each other everything and decide to set him up. When they set him up, he showed up and he was a little bit shocked. But then he's like, you know what? Let's just all talk about this. Melissa was like, I want nothing to do with your little triangle. I just want you to be a father to this baby, and that's all. He didn't want that. He's like, no, I actually want to be with you. But then turns to Vanessa and says to her, I want to be with you too. They both look at him like, are you crazy? He's like, why don't we just try it out? 3 incomes. We'll be a big happy family. I don't have to sneak around anymore. Both of you like girls. You're both beautiful. Let's just try it out. If you don't like it, you can leave. Vanessa is like, no, never, and walks out. A couple weeks later, though, Melissa needs somewhere to stay, so she ends up moving in with Vanessa and Tommy. She has the baby, and Vanessa was helping her with everything while he went to work. Vanessa and Melissa end up falling in love with each other and shared that same love for him, and it's been 5 years and they're still together. A couple of years ago, I had a couple come in. It was her very first time getting a Brazilian wax, and you can just tell that they were both kind of uncomfortable. So of course I welcomed them both in. At that time, I allowed 2 people in the room at the same time. I do not allow that anymore. So he came in with her. I instructed to get undressed from the bottom down. He's like, whoa, 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 why? I'm like, sir, your girl is getting a Brazilian wax, that's why. He's like, well, can you just cover the side that you're not waxing? I don't want her fully exposed. I'm like, no, sir, it's just harder that way. If everything is out, I'm able to apply a lot of strips at the same time, and I get it done faster. He was like, okay. So I come in, I prep the skin, I put the first strip down on her labia. He's like, whoa, 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 why are you touching her like that? I'm like, sir, I'm only putting wax on her. This is a full Brazilian wax that includes the labia and the mons pubis. He looks at her in her eyes. He's like, I told you I was uncomfortable with this. I don't like it. Now I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I keep my professionalism, and I'm like, sir.
Girl, I'm bleeding. Oh my gosh. Ooh, relax. Do you see how thick your hair is? Ew, yes. Skin isn't used to having hair ripped out of it, and your hair is super, super coarse, so it will get easier the more you do it. I'm gonna put on some tea tree, and it's gonna calm down the irritation. Oh, that feels so good. Thanks, girl.
Things clients have said while getting waxed. Ooh, that's warm back there. I have to fart, lol. Sorry, so sorry. Can you do a cool shape instead? Today is my baby's due date. Wish me luck. How do you do this all day?